Well, good morning, folks. It is still the week of Thanksgiving, and I am still working. That doesn't bother me because I'm in a good spot. Highly productive day yesterday. Made up for all my travel delays that were slowing down my email processing. I started out with emails going back to Halloween, and I got them all processed. Now, yesterday I didn't start that way. Friday I started that way, but nevertheless I covered November 6th to 20, November 2 to 20, something like that. It was a lot of progress in one day. And today all I have are newsletters. Well, I have more reports that came overnight, but nothing that's gonna hijack the whole day. I'm a little late because I spent a good amount of time getting ready, trimming my beard, trimming my sideburns, because I'm having my first headshot taken in a number of years. I've had my ID photo taken for work. This is a high-resolution magazine reprint quality photo, which I'm not sure I've had taken since 2012. So we're talking 11 years change. And I'm still using that photo on LinkedIn. Last I looked, the employer who took the photo still had it on their website. They've got me trying to rope in the clients, you know. I got pretty good mileage out of it. And if that's the case, these photos today ought to last me until I'm 50. And at that point, I probably don't want any pictures taken. No bueno. No attractivo. Well, so as I mentioned, I was on a diet for that reason, simply because I want to look the best that I can. And I don't look that good these days. A lot of Halloween candy and bad diet choices. It started as coping with my new job, and then it morphed into coping with the fact that I didn't quit my job, so I'd leave and go to lunch to try and calm myself down. And that's a habit that really started this year that I haven't kicked. And I probably need to kick that. I did bring a brown sack lunch today. I'm also tempted to treat myself at the end of my diet fast a little bit too. I guess we'll just see how I feel. Do I feel like I'm dying for some bread, or maybe I'll feel better? So, yeah, keep on trucking. Don't eat bread until the Thanksgiving rolls or something, you know. I'd really like to make this light, but it's not looking good. It's running just a little too long in that green. Now we're talking. So I have to say, 3 days of eliminating bread and beer and sugar. I moved over one belt slot on my belt. More like two if I really try. If I didn't have, 2 shirts on and everything, I probably could get 2. Last night I could get 2. Obviously there's a lot of inflammation that you carry, which comes right back as well when you reintroduce those things. Or not really. I found that when I was thin, especially this last time, I got a lot of attention I didn't really want. I didn't like it very much. So I don't mind carrying a little bit of weight. Keep the wild people away. It's interesting how appearance gets you treated sometimes. I look like your standard Southwest Airlines business traveler, overweight white guy with facial hair. You know, I can blend into the crowd. If you take away the weight or something, and suddenly I'm distinctive. And other jobs I've had, I was distinctive in a bad way. I once worked on a boat. I was on a boat. I mean, I was outside. I was a deckhand, so I was on the deck. I got a lot of sun. And you were told to always carry a knife because in the event that you were in the water and caught in one of the lines on the boat, you could cut the line with the knife. And there were all these stories about your life gets saved by your knife, basically. Have it on you at all times. Well, that got weird when I took shore leave in Manhattan and I was carrying a knife on my person. A long knife. I mean, not huge, but substantial. Okay, 4 inches-ish, maybe a little more. And I said, wow, I'm in New York. What did I want to do in New York? I wanted to go to the museums. I wanted to go to I want to say there was an American Indian Museum, there was a Jewish History Museum, there was a Money Museum in the Financial District. My taxi would take me to, my water taxi would take me to the Financial District, Wall Street area, Battery Park. So I spent a lot of time initially when I would come in each day. I would spend a lot of time around there. I found a good stand where I could buy I think it was a croissant and a coffee for $4 or something. It was a good deal to me at that time. And then I'd buy even a $10, $12 pack of cigarettes, which 10 years ago they were that. I can't imagine what they cost today. And I'd smoke a cigarette on a bench and drink a coffee and eat a croissant. And New York City, I felt pretty special. However, when I went to go to a museum, that's when I ran into problems because of my appearance. There's a photo from that time still around that the caption of the photo says, "We're not sure how James managed to look so trashy." And it was meant in a nice way. I don't take it in a bad way, but I certainly didn't realize that I looked unapproachable. I had no idea. I just thought I was me, a guy who was friendly enough and acceptable enough. That's been my sort of slogan, right? I'm good enough to get in the door, for God's sake. You know what I mean? But I wasn't this summer. That summer, I was not, and I didn't know it. The sun baked my skin in a way that was not good looking. It was sort of like the skin freckled, and then the freckles grew together into this like thick tan that was not consistent. I became a chronic shade of pink that was a cross between sickly and bizarre. I kept facial hair. I don't recall if I ever trimmed it or how that worked, but I wasn't Tom Hanks in Castaway. The facial hair was tame. My clothing was the same no matter what, other than I had a uniform on the boat. Off the boat I had, t-shirts and shorts, the same things I'd go to the crew at the bar in, or I had a very small container compartment to store my clothing in. You had to be a very Spartan existence. So I didn't look great. I mean, I was in... And of course I bought a straw hat in Chinatown, which I'd still love to get another one if I could find it. That might be what I do next week. I might go have to try and find me that hat again in Chinatown. Oh, that's a good idea. I'm staying close by. Oh, I'm going to do that. Anyways, I love that hat. It lasted me a few years before the quality gave way and a hole developed at the top. It was a straw. It wasn't too Western. It wasn't too fedora-like. It was just perfect. It was the perfect hat for me. And I've been looking for it ever since. I go to hat shops everywhere I go, pretty much. If I see one and nobody has it, nobody can match it. Nobody can match the street vendor in Chinatown, New York. Anyways, I'm just sidetracked. My point of the story is, I'd go to this museum. It was the Money Museum in Wall Street, by the bull on the street and all that. I really was oblivious to my appearance. And I remember getting a lot of flack from security guards over having a knife on my belt. They didn't like that very much. And I really should have left it behind, but you're trained to never do that. So in this instance, to go to the Money Museum gift shop, they really didn't want me there. They asked for my ID, they wanted to know what the heck I'm doing. I was clearly not a Federal Reserve employee, for sure. And this, of course, wasn't Fed, it was private, probably some sort of concession by these big companies. It was not intended to be a public circulation place. I probably shouldn't have even tried to go. But I, found it on Google or something and decided to go, or saw a sign. It was very small. There was a lady there who was uncomfortable with me. She had to tolerate me, and I looked around, and I don't remember if I bought any souvenirs or not. I had limited funds. But it was not what I expected either. It was just a bad fit on both sides. This lady did not want to talk to me. She did not like me. She did not want me in her museum. And I didn't really understand why at the time. I didn't understand the suspicion that I faced. I was treated with suspicion. I was treated with... treated like they thought I was in there to plant something, maybe. Or they thought I was going into... like I was an unemployed guy who'd been laid off by Wall Street and I came back to get my revenge or something. I mean, they were really uncomfortable with me. And I never forgot how strange that made me feel. And the lesson for all of us is to think about how we treat people based on appearance. It's also to think about our own appearance a little bit, right? Sometimes one needs to act like a Roman in Rome a little bit. Maybe. I don't know what the lessons are here, but necessarily, but there's something there. There's something of value to that story. Are we the ones who make people feel that way? Are we the ones who are the listeners, people who have felt that way? I don't know. But it's interesting. The appearance. I also remember a time when I grew out my beard. I wore a hooded sweatshirt. My hair got long. I remember feeling different in the grocery store. Being treated differently. And I also wonder how this transcends gender, race, and other factors like that for people. I mean, if I can come from the place of the white man who feels a little funny, oh boy, I bet other people can tell some other stories, right? Something to be noodling, I think, there a little bit. But I did try to improve my luck. Same summer, Manhattan, New York. I go to Broadway, somewhere on Broadway. I wander the island for hours and hours on foot. So I did take a subway occasionally, but not meaningfully. I just wander on foot, take in everything. I really did wander the whole place. Manhattan. And I think at some point I decided it would be a good idea to buy a suit in New York. And I end up at this sort of suit warehouse up on the 3rd floor, it said, on Broadway. There's a man working in the store. Little did I know, I'm actually a very easy person to fit into an on-the-rack suit. And I never owned a brown suit before, so I thought I could get a tan brown suit and have one. It cost me maybe $140 after tax. And I paid in cash. And, you know, they got weird with me when it was time to go. The guy said, "Pay the lady." And he said it with a certain directness and a certain feeling as though he thought I wasn't going to pay for that suit. And that's a bizarre thing. Why in the heck wouldn't I pay? Now, I might be goofing off and bumbling and forget to, or not be knowing that I paid back. How did I know where the checkout stand was? You know, I didn't know. But he sure knew. He knew that I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing. Granted, that suit was probably worth $35. The funny part of this story is, I forgot about this. It was almost cheaper for me to stay in a youth hostel on the island than it was to go back to the boat every night. Because of the water taxi costs and everything else, and I'd have to retrace my steps and cover the same ground I'd already covered, which was boring to me. So to stay in the island, I would rent this youth hostel. I want to say it was in a place called Columbia Heights. I know it wasn't the finest area of town, but it wasn't the worst either. And it was a simple hostel with bunk beds all around, with a small mesh locker you could lock up at night. I stayed at least 2 nights in this place, maybe more, over time. And I would usually try and get so drunk I didn't really know where I was, so it wasn't so weird. The only people I remember staying in there with me were these Asian tourists, both young women who we left each other alone, but gosh, they probably weren't necessarily comfortable with a man in the room. I wouldn't be. But I was smaller back then, maybe less threatening. But apparently I was quite threatening based on the way people were treating me, right? So I have this suit in a garment bag, and it doesn't fit in the mesh locker. And I thought, what do I do? If I hang it up in the common room there, it's probably getting stolen, given where we are and such. So I decide to put the suit down on my mattress and lay on top of it and sleep on it. That way, if someone tried to take it, they'd wake me up in the process. And so that was how I protected the suit overnight before I could go boat where Lord only knows where I put it on the boat. I'm sure I had to wad it up into a corner of the compartment under my bunk. Nevertheless, I had one more new suit that fit me for my looks at that time, and I don't think I wore it very much. It was very thin. It was a summer outfit, really. Probably was for a person of my complexion at that time, which was darker. Once I paled out, I'm sure I didn't look good in it. I don't think I've owned besides one jacket I bought a year or two later. I've never had a brown item like that ever again. But those are some New York stories that are not as glamorous as going to the comedy store or comedy cellar, I mean, and eating at all the fancy restaurants. So, what's all that to say? Try to look good in your photos. That's what I'm trying to say. Try to look good for your career and all that. This photo I'm taking is going to go in a magazine featuring me as one of 10 people who are getting an award across the country in our little industry sector, so that's kind of fun. I want to represent the company well and myself well. Like I said, hopefully have a photo I can hijack and use for other things as well, right? LinkedIn or something like that, because, again, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, realistically, I thought I was overweight then. That's funny. That's the thing, is you can keep chasing and chasing, but guess what? There's always going to be something to squeeze under the chin. There's always going to be something hanging over the belt. You know, I chased it and I chased it, and it's a diminishing return. You can fight for vanity and break yourself in the process, or relax and enjoy yourself and try to stay out of XXX clothes. That's my goal. I'm holding my own. I have a little bulge every year. I imagine I'll become one of those resigned middle-aged people who exercise just to feel alive and not feel like garbage. I foresee that happening. The heartburn will push away all the good food, and stomach issues will correct me in my bad ways eventually. So until then, bon appetit. Which apparently our president said on a microphone at a banquet. A bunch of leaders. But that's just all he said. He held a microphone and realized that everybody was just going to eat anyways. So he just said, bon appetit. Put it down. Oh my gosh. I don't know what this country's gonna do. But remember those things the teachers taught you. Checks and balances. They're there. They're around. We've got plans and backup plans. Backups to the backups. The right thing always ends up happening. Now without some broken eggs. Alright, I'm going to check in on traffic. It appears I'm going too slow for conditions. I'm speeding, but this is not fast enough for Height Trucking LLC over here, who wants to pass me, who must be going at least 75 miles an hour. I gotta tell you, trucks who do this are not helping us on the speed limiter front. He did not need to get over. He was already in my lane. He went around me. Now he's going around this guy. He's basket weaving in traffic in a semi-truck. This is why we're going to limit you. We don't want you to be limited. I don't want speed limiters. But what this person is doing is just as unsafe as a speed limiter. So the question is, how many... Oh boy, this is going to be a tough lane change here. Nobody is going to let me over. Certainly not if I don't signal. All the people who are fighting to not let me over didn't even want to be in this lane. That's a lesson, isn't it? Wow, a cab over. I wish I had a photo of that. Cab over tanker. You don't see that every day. That was a special truck right there. Might be one of my coworkers up here running a little late, just like me. Maybe I should try to catch up and find out. This is the intersection of 435 and I-70. I don't think he's going to be at that intersection. There's no reason for him to. I don't think it's the coworker. But if it is that person, they'll be in the left lane driving fast. And sure enough, left lane driving fast. Perhaps I should try and catch up and find out. Should we do it? Should we drive like a banshee for no good reason just to see if it's a coworker? This truck is flying up there. I'm going 72. I'll never catch it. Must have been a bad day. End up on 435, and that's not your regular road to travel. So now I'm going up to 75. Really no good reason. The truck is about a half a mile away. The only way I'll catch up is if there's a lollygag who slows down the left lane. We're in a work zone, the tickets are going to go up. This is not worth it. I'll be 5 cars ahead now. 20 over and a 55. No thank you. And that'll be all, folks. So far today, I haven't eaten anything. I had a salad for lunch and a salad for dinner and an apple after dinner, and I've had nothing since. And I'm in pretty good shape. My daughter offered me a piece of candy last night. I said, no thank you. Doing great. If I could do this for 6 months or something, look pretty good, but I'm pretty bored. Now, there is some wisdom in trying to limit things during the week. There's just a lot of benefits to trying to be healthy. However, it was very expensive. I spent yesterday about $30 on my food. Just me. I can remember ordering McDonald's biscuits for $1 a piece, and I'd have 2 for breakfast, 2 for lunch. $4. 2 meals, $4. If I had them for dinner too, which I've never done, but if I did, that'd be $6 a day for all my food. Well, that's cheap. But it comes at an expense of your health, and so on. Well, I'm going to be a solid 5+ minutes late. I don't really care. The question is, do I work tomorrow? Next week, out of town this week a little bit, not too much. Just glad I'm not doing work travel. It seemed like for a couple of years everybody always had these days open on their calendar to set up a mediation or something. A couple of years I said, fine, it'll help pass a short week. Ha ha ha. How about not? I saw the wildest thing. 12:20 a.m. Kansas City Airport. I saw a throng of people like I've never seen before. In the baggage claim. Well, thankfully at that time I was at Ace at the Circle parking, so I was just walking by baggage claim in order to get to my car. Oh, look at that. State Trooper speed trap. That's why you don't mess around. Blue Springs. Always. This isn't even Blue Springs yet. Oh, somebody's pulled over up here. Wonder if it's that truck. I mean, they had to be going 85 miles an hour. I don't know what you're doing at work that's so important that you've got to drive that fast. And even if you are late, driving fast doesn't really help you. There will be a slowdown inevitably in your pipeline, whether it's a red light, whether it's an emergency, or whatever. When that happens, any advantage you got from speeding is negated. The slow cars pull up right behind you after 30 seconds or a minute, and you've accomplished nothing other than wasting fuel. Well, it was not that truck that got pulled over. I found that men in pickup trucks seem to have a certain advantage with the police. I don't know if it's true. I know that when I drove a truck, I was very, very lucky. I'll just put it that way. You're driving around after midnight with your headlights off. Oh, just flip them on, you're good. You drove the wrong way up a one-way street. After going to a poker tournament, nah, you're alright. Just don't do it again. You ran a red light on camera, and we caught you, and we fined you. Okay, we'll let you go. You know, thing after thing after thing somewhat gives me a little bit of pause. Wow, so here's that truck again. Somehow I think that's the same one. It can't be. That's the Chevrolet Colorado. trucks get a bit of a break. Pickup trucks. Other trucks, no. If you're in a commercial truck, you are a ticket mine. A ticket mine is a vehicle that has so many different regulations attached to it that the odds of being in violation of one are tremendously high. So with the right inspection, you can find citable offenses all over this thing. Whether it's brake conditions, light conditions, height, weight, length restrictions, whatever it is. You can find them, you can cite them, you can bring in a lot of revenue for your local law enforcement entity. That's the difference between an F550 and an F150. Now, if you're not for hire, you're going to have the same benefits as... Okay, here's how you know trucks have a special advantage. Half of the time when you see one, they don't even put a license plate on their vehicle. They drive around with the license plate in the glove box or in their dashboard, and when they get pulled over, it becomes a conversation piece. Check out my truck, officer. Yeah, I stick close to the farm. Here's my papers. Do you know so-and-so? I mean, it's almost like an invitation to talk, you know? And if you're listening to this in another place outside of farm country, you're probably stunned if you've never heard of this before. Many trucks you'll see, especially in Missouri, will have no license plate posted on them whatsoever. Okay, this is bad. On purpose. They do it on purpose. And for the reasons I mentioned, it's they have exemptions, they're friends of law enforcement, or think they're friends of law enforcement. I mean, it's kind of a, what's the word, a trend or a thing to do in certain circles. There are times where if I'm driving to Kansas, if I'm driving to southern Missouri in a pickup, it's a legitimate question to ask yourself. Am I better off with an expired Missouri plate or no plate than a Kansas plate? It's a very fair question. Kansas was very hotly disliked where I grew up, and it probably still is. People come over to Branson, drive slow, and drive the locals crazy. And I felt that the last time I went to southern Missouri. I got some people to open up about it. One guy even told me I was better off probably with an expired Missouri plate than having an active Kansas plate on my car. And that I'm not there mentally to accept that, but on some level, I get it.